Welcome to another jam-packed episode of the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast, 32 teams in 32 days. I'm your host, Anthony Wright, coming to you from the beautiful and humid confines of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Wherever you may be watching or listening, I thank you as always. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. You can check the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast not only here on YouTube, but Substack, Spotify, Patreon, Trovo, and as well as on Podbean. Don't forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Thanks. Happy to be here with you on this beautiful July 18th, 2025. Here to bring you another episode of 32 Teams in 32 Days, our summer segment leading into camp, which will actually be starting in a few days for a lot of NFL teams. But today we're going to cover over the team that picked 9th in the NFL draft. That'd be the New Orleans Saints. And we'll be covering the team that picked 10th, which was the Chicago Bears, and detailing what their all-season outlooks look like and what they're playing, or what I think the projections may look like going into the 2025 season. That being said, we always want to make sure we give a shout out to several friends of the show. First and foremost, if you're an avid gamer like myself, it's Madden season. We're right around that time where you definitely need to be, downtime, from work, kids, things like that. It's time to get plugged into the game. So definitely check a description link. Within the description box of this video, there will be a link, to PlayStation Direct. I would definitely implore you to check that out. Sony PlayStation, more than a game. Also, for my StubHub and Viagogo subscribers, if you guys are definitely looking to try to do something with this summer, there's a lot of festivals, a lot of tours going on. Beyonce's touring. I know Viagogo, Coldplay's touring in the UK. A lot of different things going on right now, so I'll definitely have the links for that in the description box of this video as well. So, going right into this episode, guys, like I said, we're going to start off with the New Orleans Saints. They picked 9th in this past year's draft. Very rough year for the New Orleans Saints. It was a very, very tumultuous season from the aspect of injuries, inconsistent play, and it just ultimately wiped them out of it way beforehand. And after a promising start to the beginning of last season, where their offense was, high flying, first 2 or 3 weeks, I would say first 2 weeks of the season, they had a very high octane offense, blew out Dallas, won some good games, and then it seems like after that Philly game in week 3, the wheels just fell off after that. But Dennis Allen, who had been the coach there for several years, was fired mid-season. He was fired when the team was 2-7. He had Darren Rizzi come in and coach the team to a 3-5 mark. So the team played strong down the stretch. Obviously, they were limited, not as talented they have been in previous terms, under Dennis Allen or Sean Payton. So clearly this team is in a rebuild. I think that's without saying. New coach kellenmoore, who they brought in, was the offensive coordinator in Philadelphia, who just came off a Super Bowl victory. They're looking forward to him to help come in and rebuild this franchise. You have a new quarterback. Derek Carr is gone. Obviously he's been retired now due to the shoulder injury that he suffered, which I still think we need to keep an eye on that a year or so from now. Let's see how things play out. But he said the shoulder was degenerative and it was something that's not going to heal, so he's out. That being said, he already knew the writing was kind of on the wall, being that they were already looking for someone to replace him, because they I don't even want to bullshit it. Not kind of. They pretty much were like, we don't want Derek Carr. If we can get a better replacement, let's do that. That being said, they drafted Tyler Shuck in the second round. They grabbed Spencer Rattler, who has already been there for the past couple years. Jake Hayner, and then you got Hunter Decker. So clear deck, no clear winner, no clear choice for quarterback. Then again, which leads to the whole point of the team rebuilding and culture change, and just pretty much needing new life injected into this franchise. Now, if we're talking about free agency, the team did, I do give Mickey Loomis and kellenmoore credit. They did try to go out in free agency to try to make some acquisitions to try to beef up the roster. First and foremost, going out and re-signing Brandon Cooks. Now, Brandon Cooks, again, past his prime, not the burner or the deep threat that he once was. However, coming back to New Orleans, the team that drafted him, it only made sense. Now, they do have him here on a 2-year deal, so it's not like he's just a one and done. They do have him for the next 2 years. Whoever the young quarterback is going to benefit from having his veteran experience out there. But nonetheless, I mean, what Brandon Cooks are we getting? Are we getting Brandon Cooks from the past couple of years who hasn't really been that healthy? Or are we getting the guy from like 3 or 4 years ago who, still has some juice left in the tank? Remains to be seen, but, they brought him back. Isaac Yiadom, who had a brief stint with the San Francisco 49ers, they brought him back on a 3-year deal. Again, and I guess, that was just more or less familiarity. Guy was in your organization, you cultivated him, you didn't have enough money to pay him, he leaves, goes to San Fran, it didn't work out, he came back home, so worked out for him there. And then obviously their biggest acquisition in free agency was getting safety Justin Reed from the Chiefs. There was a low-key bidding war for him. Justin Reed almost went to the Philadelphia Eagles, but, essentially, Saints made the move and the necessary, and they had the money to get him. And they also re-signed Chase Young. So they did a lot of re-signing of their own guys. Like I said, biggest acquisition being Justin Reed. But again, even with the Chase Young signing, you kind of got to feel like that signing was more or less a projection signing. They're kind of hoping that they get the best out of Chase Young because he hasn't really had double-digit sacks. He hasn't really had that output that, a lot of people once thought or believed he would have prior to his injury. So be that as it may, that was their offseason acquisitions. Looking at the season rankings where they ranked last year, they were terrible. Offense, 24th in points, 21st in yards, 23rd in passing yards, which is just fucking horrible. Defensive ranking wise, now you got to think Dennis Allen's known for defense. So for the defense to be middle of the pack, if not garbage, I'll just say it garbage. That was even more of an indictment of why he needed to be fired. They were 19th in points, 30th in yards, 27th in passing yards. So they were just getting gouged and they weren't able to move the ball in the manner they wanted to. It just really put them in a bad situation. However, the Saints were able to run the ball. When they did have Alvin Kamara, he still was able to produce. Their running game is something that has still been comparable in New Orleans since Sean Payton has left. Now, they were middle of the pack. They were 14th. However, when you look at those offensive numbers, you consider they couldn't really score and couldn't really move the ball that much. It's a shock that they were 14th in rushing yards. However, defensively, 31st in rushing yards. So they clearly defensively were suffering, whether it be the offense not sustaining drives long enough and the defense having to be out there a lot, whether it was the defense not really holding water and the offense not being able to play catch up. However it may be, it's a situation where the Saints are in a complete rebuild and they need playmakers at all levels of the team, offense, defense, and special teams. Which goes to the draft. One of the young playmakers that the Saints have now acquired and added to the stable is Kelvin Banks Jr., tackle out of Texas. Make no mistake, this guy is a mauler, big body tackle, someone that's going to be there to help protect your young quarterback, whomever that may be, whether it's Tyler Shuck, Spencer Rattler, Jake Hayner, or Hunter Deckers, whoever, or a guy next year, Arch Manning, who knows. Be that as it may, though, it's a sticky situation for the Saints. They're not projected to be too good. And they have legitimate questions. Obviously, which quarterback will emerge? Can their O-line even improve enough to help their young quarterbacks? Because the Saints' offensive line was not good. At all last year. And they had their moments, they had their spots, stretches where they played well. I think they averaged out with a C grade during those games, but for the most part, they were fucking atrocious. So it's just a situation where they have to improve their offensive line if they have any shot of competing, especially in that NFC South. And then is there a scenario where we could see the Saints not ending up in the basement of the NFC South? No. Let's just be honest. Tampa, Atlanta, and Carolina. Now, they're going to be battling with Carolina for the bottom of that division. But if I was a betting man, if I was to look at it right now, I would say Carolina has more talent than New Orleans does. So kind of hard for me to see New Orleans really competing in the NFC. I do expect them to be a team that doesn't make the playoffs. However, best case scenario, anywhere between 6 to 7 wins. Again, not making the playoffs, but there's a lot to fix on this roster before anyone could even assume or think that this team is a championship caliber team or even prepared to even compete for the playoffs. I get it that the division is not that tough. However, let's again go through it. They're not, in my opinion, they're not better than the Panthers. They're damn sure not better than the Falcons, and they're damn sure not better than the Buccaneers. So, and I know you play divisional teams. They play each other differently, but talent-wise, the Saints, are definitely, I think, will be in the basement of the NFC South. Going next, a team that picked 10th in the NFL draft, we're going to the Chicago Bears. The Bears. Well, what a shitty season for the Bears last year. It'd be a broken record if I'm going into the issues that Matt Eberflus had with his play selection, play calling, clock management. The offensive coordinator essentially telling the young quarterback, to say, leave him in the room to study tape on his own and not really guide him through things. Just a shit show. Just a shit show in Chicago, which is shocking because this team started out with a winning record beginning of the year. A lot of people had a lot of hope that this team could really be viable and competitive. And for the most part, they were, but not being coached up properly will cost you games. And it was a situation where looking at it, the Bears they weren't coached up to the level that they could have been last year. I think last year was definitely a disappointment by any stretch of the imagination. When you get a young quarterback with a lot of hype and potential, you grab a lot of veterans that can play. Keenan Allen, who knows what the fuck happened there. DeAndre Swift, after that impressive season he had with Philadelphia the year prior. But you didn't improve the offensive line, and you didn't improve the defensive line, and you didn't improve. And when I say didn't improve the defensive line, keep in mind they did grab Montez Sweat the year prior, but you have to keep making acquisitions to that line. There has to be a rotation. The Bears are known for defense. They're trying to make the turn to offense, but you didn't really give these young guys any real pieces to really hang their hats on last year. Shocking enough, I guess not shocking enough, they ended up 10th in the draft with a 5-12 record. So Bears definitely needed a new coach, a new mindset. And they wound up getting that. And guess what? A new offensive line. The Bears completely cleaned house to improve this franchise after that season they had, which was another disappointment. Got to give them credit for that. They bring in Ben Johnson, who was a former offensive coordinator from the Detroit Lions. Fire Shane Waldron. They bring in Declan Doyle, who had experience before, and I'll pull up his information shortly. But he had experience before as a coordinator, but this is, his first time as an OC. So he'll definitely be under the watchful eye of everyone and the ire of everyone, because make no mistake, they're going to say this is Ben Johnson's offense, which it is. They're going to say Ben Johnson is the head of this snake, which he is. However, make no mistake, the offensive coordinator is going to be evaluated. If Declan Doyle does well running this offense, he's going to be a guy that's at some point going to be considered for a head coaching job. But that's, again, down the line a bit. But going into Declan Doyle, here on the Bears website, says Declan Doyle joined the Bears as the offensive coordinator in 2025. Obviously, he assumes the role of offensive coordinator, most recently leading the tight ends group of the Denver Broncos. So knows offense, never been an OC, first time being in this position. So a lot of pressure there. And obviously the team I just mentioned, which was the New Orleans Saints, who fired Dennis Allen when they were 2-7, he became the defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. So look how things fall into place. So the defense should definitely take a step up going into next season. Looking at it though, looking at the rankings and the stats as they may, right now the Chicago Bears, and I mean they were terrible, obviously, numbers wise, but you just get a feel that this team might be different than the team that we were expecting to be good last year. Looking at it, maybe it's false hope this year, maybe it's tangible hope. I don't know. But looking at the rankings from last season, 28th in points, garbage. 32nd in yards, garbage. Obviously last in the league. 31st in pass yards, and I don't blame that all on Caleb Williams. I think Caleb didn't make there was times he didn't make great decisions with the football. However, I think there was a lot of times where, you were just expecting this kid to make magic, chicken stew, out of, with chicken shit. So it just, I don't know. It was weird. Defensive ranking wise, they were 13th in points, 27th in yards. Couldn't really stop anybody because obviously being on the field a lot. And if you notice, there's a theme with these teams who are either trying to find a quarterback or have a young quarterback and the team's not all the way assembled. The offense is going 3 and out a lot. Defense is on the field tremendously, a tremendous amount. And the next thing you know, you're hemorrhaging points and you're not able to catch up. So that is just a similar situation with the Bears last year. Looking at it, though, they, like I said, 13th in points, 27th in yards, 16th in passing yards, so middle of the pack there. Defense definitely has to take a step up if they plan on competing, and especially in that vaunted NFC North, where you have the Vikings, the Packers, and the Lions, who are not going to be, going away anytime soon. So be that as it may, Bears definitely had their work cut out for them. Offensive rushing yards, again, I spoke briefly about DeAndre Swift, and the acquisition they felt like he was going to bring to the team, and they really didn't run the ball well. They were 31st in rushing yards, which was just terrible. That also leads to deals with offensive line play. Defensive rushing yards, they were 16th. So the Bears defense, as you could tell by these statistical rankings, the Bears defense is starting to make the turn to where they're getting better. The offense has gotten worse. So this is a situation where definitely coaching plays a factor. Now, I'd be remiss to say, looking at that draft pick, it clearly is geared towards offense. With the 10th pick, they drafted Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. Clearly trying to score more points, clearly trying to give Caleb Williams the weapons he needs, trying to change the offensive philosophy and mindset there in Chicago, which has not existed in forever. So I get it. But make no mistake, there will be questions about how this offense can be with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. And I definitely can see the defense improving with Dennis Allen, but the questions will be there. For one, can Ben Johnson truly elevate this offense and this team? I think so, but it's something that definitely will have to be answered. With all the additions that the Bears have made on the offensive line, obviously just signing Joe Thuney to a huge extension earlier this offseason, and getting a lot of those guys in via free agency this year, can they make the leaps that we expect to see to put the Bears in contention to where maybe they threaten for a wild card, maybe they threaten for a playoff spot? Remains to be seen, but I definitely think the additions to the offensive line is definitely going to help this team. And the most essential question, can the Bears make the playoffs? I believe there's a chance. Now, barring any horrific injuries to any of their starters, especially obviously Caleb Williams, I can see this team who won 5 games a year ago easily winning 8 to 10 games this year, competing for a playoff spot. I do think that there are going to be bumps in the road. I do think that there are things that the Bears are going to have to address. Ben Johnson's going to have to address. This is still a very young team. They haven't learned how to win. They won some tough games last year, which I think will help them going into this year. But still a lot of work to be done. Nothing is guaranteed in the NFL. So I got them pegged for best case scenario, 8 to 10 wins. Could be a fringe playoff team. However, I can also see them, because of their youth and experience, possibly missing the playoffs. That's going to do it for this episode, guys. As always, I love you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And always remember, stay cool, stay passionate, love your teams, take care, and enjoy your day. Hey to all my fans and subscribers out in the UK. Looking to get out this weekend, looking to make something of your week, then look no further than the Viagogo, the #2 leading ticket seller in the world for live events, shows, and concerts. Definitely check it out. If you're looking for exclusive tickets, look in the description of my videos on the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. Take care and enjoy your day.